Hello friends, welcome back to League Unlock. Eric and Mark with you guys for a little bit of European flavored power rankings where more so than Korea and NA, it's definitely a mess more outside of number one, basically. The other 9 squads seem to change week to week.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of movement here in the European power rankings. It seems like every week there's just a new slot of teams here coming through.
They all have the same ranking, the same record.
Making their claim to try and climb into that top 5, climb into that playoff spot here, heading into the last couple weeks of the split.
And the movement starts right at the bottom of the rankings. As we've seen, XL and Rogue actually jockey back and forth a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. After week 7, it was XL who actually came oh so close to going 2-0, but they did get a win, so they're hopping ahead of Rogue into that number 9 spot. Both these squads, I'll give them credit. The roster changes, they've looked much better the last few weeks.
If you look at week 1 of the LEC and then week 7 of the LEC here, you're going to see a massive difference in the squads from Rogue and XL and how they're actually performing on the Rift here. And hey, you got to give the quick shout out, no relegation in the LEC, so there's nothing to worry about here for Rogue and XL, but this little battle here for 9 and 10 has been pretty fun.
And now that they're unable to make playoffs, both teams have said Vander and Kasing are going to play with their academy squads to help them make playoffs and win. So mailing it in on the regular season. So they're staying there 9 and 10. They would have anyways. Schalke and Splice swap spots this week, and it's crazy that 2 8 and 6 teams are sitting at number 7 and 8. But pretty much, not pretty much, all of the 7 and 7 squads I have more confidence in than these 2 squads. And specifically, actually, Schalke actually is 7 and 7. So the fact that they're 8th after the crazy great start that they had to this split is sad. It's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy here in the European region when you're looking at what's going on with Schalke and how they haven't been able to right the ship in exactly the right ways that they have to be doing it here and getting some advantages. They're not happening. And as we talked about before, you want to see the bottom lane from Schalke be that winning point, be that strong point for them and get them those advantages. They're just simply not getting enough of them. And that's to the point of, well, okay, well, they're still getting some. How can you ask for more from them? They're the only guys capable of making these type of leads right now on this roster. So that's why you got to put more on their shoulders and say, hey, we need more if we're going to win, and it has to be coming from you because you're the only guys capable of doing it.
Some of the games, they're not even able to do anything before the games are almost over. You're seeing Otawamne get solo killed. Abadaga has had some incredibly questionable positioning in a lot of these fights. So a lot of issues with Schalke right now. Splice is a team where, I mean, they're above 500. You should be excited about them. You should say, yeah, playoffs, I'm ready for these guys. They had a win against Schalke this week, and then they lost pretty handily to Origin. So I feel like they're still not playing the meta the same way as the rest of the teams in EU. And even in their wins, I don't have the utmost confidence in them.
That's the thing here. Even in the wins, you're not getting confidence in this squad right now. Yes, there are certainly some positives here when you are thinking about where Splice is and how they're actually performing. I think when you do talk about Splice, you should be talking about that bottom lane with Kabe and Norskeren holding their own relatively well a couple times here. I think that is something that they're going to be needing more from this bot lane in order to make this push here, because the other members of this Splice team have been, for the most part, holding their own pretty strong.
Yeah, and I mean, it is just, as soon as it's past 25 minutes, all right, Kabe, you better carry the game. You're the win condition. We're hoping you can completely pop off. I think the early game from Xerxes has fallen off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but I don't even have full confidence that Splice can lock up one of these playoff spots. You saw SK there at number 6. They go down a couple of spots, even though they did get the win against G2. I'm knocking that up more to G2 kind of throwing that game. And they also had that tough loss against XL where they got completely bodied by them. So they're in at number 6. And then the top 5, Misfits stay put where they were last week. I'm still not ready to be fully confident in them. Another 1-1 week from them. And Fnatic, 3rd straight week, they're climbing up these standings. It seemed almost inevitable, but there were definitely some dark times where some serious question marks were there. But now they're into the top 4, another 2-0 week, and a big win against Schalke to really help their playoff hopes. And then they took down Rogue as well. But they look much better. This week it was Whippo that stepped up in a big way.
We talk about not having a ton of confidence in Misfits at number 5, but when you talk about Fnatic at number 4, I am unbelievably sure about this right here. This has to be where you're putting Fnatic right now, given their most recent performances. And I'll tell you what, why I'm so confident, especially with Fnatic, is when we started to see things turn around, and actually for a long time now, you've been seeing Nemesis be okay in the mid lane here, not an issue for Fnatic. And then you started to see Reckless start to pop off on the bottom side, which is always a great sign for Fnatic. And the final touches here has been Whippo finally re-emerging as one of the better top laners here in the LEC and really putting on a good show the last 2 weeks here. Fnatic is making a great push towards the playoffs, and they are one of the teams here, one of the very few teams in the LEC that I actually have quite a bit of confidence in their game state heading towards playoffs.
Yeah, and for Whippo, he's a guy who's rarely going to have great KDA numbers or anything like that, but he just exerts so much pressure in that top lane. Getting solo kills as Jarvan at level 3 against a Vlad, that just seems insane. I'm going to assume there was some kind of misplay there from Otawamne to have that happen to him, but yeah, Whippo playing non-tanks, able to pop off is when Fnatic was at their best, and the early game for Broxah seems to fully be back online. Fnatic, it seemed insane to think that they wouldn't make playoffs, and they're making sure that doesn't come true the last couple of weeks. Origin moves into the top 3. They had a must-have 2-0 weekend, big win against Vitality. Even though they won that head-to-head, Vitality's still in at number 2. And the fact that they went 1-1 without Jizuke playing this weekend is great for them.
That's the big one, right? You have Jizuke, unfortunately unable to play this past weekend. Seiken steps in and doesn't miss a beat. Gives you an amazing Rise performance, even the one that makes you think, oh, is Jizuke even in studio?
You don't need him.
I don't know. This is crazy. Vitality, a good week here, even at 1-1 and holding steady. Get Jizuke back in that lineup and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, Vitality, pretty confident they'll be heading towards the playoffs. And G2, they decided we like having 2 losses instead of 1. Why not, boys?
Oh, man, that is a throw if I've ever seen one. And that is 100% just when you start playing with your food and you get a little bit too careless. Death timers start racking up, people pick up the bounties, and before you know it, you're the ones with the Nexus blowing up.
And to be fair to G2, they've clinched a playoff spot even before Week 7. I believe Week 6, they already clinched it, which is insane that early. And I know they're still playing. You want one of those top 2 seeds to play less in the playoffs, but they just haven't been tested, and quite frankly, they're probably a bit bored.
Oh yeah, hey, you gotta be tired if you're just constantly stomping all the time, not getting the challenges that you need. But I'll tell you what, I think that come playoff time, enough of these LEC squads are gonna be ready to make their challenge to the G2 throne.
And that SK game was really the only close game that they've played in after they threw their lead, because even when they lost to Origin, they were the ones who actually got dumpstered. So game 1 that was actually close at any point really for G2. I think they'll bounce back in Week 8.